Paranoid and delusional, Prince Harry's suspicions that his family is somehow out to get him are totally unfounded. The king, in fact, loves his son and just wants him to get his life in order. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the King YouTube channel. According to Prince Harry's version of events, his father, King Charles, and his brother, Prince William, have hardly been supportive of him. He's made some pretty shocking claims, like that William was always treated so much better than he was, and that he never got a fair shake because his family was always planting negative stories about him in the media. But according to a new book by Robert Hartman, Harry's version of events doesn't exactly line up with reality, and this is something that we've talked about time and time again. Harry is somebody who is mentally quite disturbed. He's made it clear that for whatever reason, he is a rather unreliable narrator. So for starters, Harry has built a career for himself in the US, talking about ways in which his family has slighted him. To hear Harry tell it, his family just sits around all day coming up with new ways to screw him over. But according to Robert Hartman, the truth could not be further from that. In fact, he writes, a common perception is that the king and his staff spend much of their time worrying about what to do with the two difficult dukes, Harry and Andrew. In reality, however, the king has learned over long years of royal domestic trauma how to compartmentalize issues over which he has little control. And this fits with who I believe the king has shown himself to be as a person. The king is somebody who avoids conflict. We do know that. And King Charles is a mature man. He's not some young hothead who's going to hold grudges and be upset over small things. I'm sure that he feels a sense of loss because of the life his son Harry has chosen. But at the same time, I absolutely believe that he's not sitting around worrying about Harry all the time. Harry has made his decisions. When Harry is ready to change, he's going to make new decisions. According to Hardman, yes, the departure of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex from royal life in 2020 and their subsequent sensational attacks on the institution on camera and in print have hurt. He writes, of course the king is extremely sad about Harry and Meghan, but there is a sense of exasperation that he has done what he can and now he is king. There are many more things to think about, says one friend. He has tried listening. Now he just says, I don't want to know what the problem is. I'm just getting on with my life. I don't know if any of you have dealt with a wayward, troubled family member at any point in your lives, but I have, and I can tell you this is exactly the approach that you have to end up taking if you are going to save your own sanity. I mean, Harry is lost down a rabbit hole. It's not going to help matters if the king throws himself down that same rabbit hole and gets lost too. The king has to focus on his duty to his country and his duty to his family, his other family members, the loyal ones, the ones who didn't trash the family for money. And that's also why I absolutely am not going to believe that report that we saw in Life and Style a couple of days ago, claiming that King Charles is choosing Harry over William. I mean, what an absolutely ludicrous idea. Who is going to believe that? The king is an intelligent man, and I'm sure that it's true he is upset about what has happened with Harry and Meghan, but at the same time, he knows what he's got to focus on. I can also understand why the king doesn't feel like he can listen to any more of these problems involving Harry and Meghan, because with them it's always something. I'm sure in the beginning he tried to meet them in the middle, tried to compromise with them. But with a couple of people like that, it's always going to be more and more and more. You give them an inch, they're going to be taking a mile. They're never going to be satisfied with what is offered. They're always going to expect more. And so the king is taking the right approach. At some point, you just have to ignore the noise. Hardman goes on to write, nothing is final, however. You'd always like your child back as a senior official, but when your child has decided that, at the moment, they want to do things differently, you have to give them the space to do that. The door is always open, though. I mean, it's stuff like this that makes me see how really sad this whole situation is. No matter what we may think of Harry and Meghan, I mean, he may be a king, but he's also still a father, and he's a father who's now basically grieving a son who hasn't even passed on. And that's a situation that can't be helped by all the privilege and money in the world. And it's sad to me that Harry seems to be so hung up on things that happened in the past that he believes were wrong, like his father didn't hug him when he delivered the news that their mother had passed away. I mean, Harry, it's time to move on. It's really sad that he is missing out now on a relationship with a father who deeply loves him. In Robert Hardman's Charles III, New King, New Court, The Inside Story, he also sheds some light on the king's coronation and Harry's seating. Who could forget that not only did Harry have to face the injustice of sitting in the third row, but he was also sitting behind his Aunt Anne, the Princess Royal, who was wearing a hat with a gigantic feather on it that at least partially obstructed his view, or at least obstructed our view of Harry. But according to Hardman, that was not intentional. He writes, at the coronation itself, Prince Harry was seated in the third row of the royal section, immediately behind Princess Anne, who was wearing a striking red-plumed bicorn hat that remained on her head throughout. Social media snipers instantly concluded that Harry had been deliberately placed behind his aunt's tall hat to obscure his view. This is nonsense. Not only do the Lord Chamberlain's office not think like that, but the Princess Royal had only switched to that seat after her request for a speedy exit. The hat was an interesting question, the princess recalled later. I said, "Are you sure you want me to keep the hat on? Because it's quite a decent-sized hat." And the answer was yes. There you go, not my choice. I believe with Harry and Meghan we see a case of a couple of people who really are incredibly petty. They are spiteful, they are vindictive, and so they project those qualities onto everybody else. Harry believes that the organizers would intentionally obscure his view of his father's coronation just because they were mad at him, because, well, that's the kind of thing he and Meghan would do. But obviously, the royal family are above all that. I would guess that many members of the royal family pity Harry more than anything else. They may very well see what I see, a lost individual who has gotten himself involved with somebody he has no business being with, and who needs to find a way back to his family as soon as he possibly can. But when Harry's ready to come back to his family, is his family going to be ready to receive him? Well, if you ask me, it depends on what happens between now and then. But Harry, I think, should view this book in a positive light, because essentially this book is telling us that, yeah, the king knows all about what Harry and Meghan have done. He's not in denial about any of their behavior. Nobody is. But at the same time, he still loves his son, and the king is still committed to being a father to Harry when Harry is ready to come back. So I think now Harry's just got to take that step. He's got to get away from Meghan. He's got to get some real help for himself. He has got to take care of those demons that he has not been taking care of for his entire life. And he needs to see a real doctor, not some quack who Meghan has recommended. And once he can figure out why he did the horrible things that he did, once he can really analyze his behavior, then I believe there could be a path forward for him with his family. Now, I'm not sure that he could ever resume official working duties, but still, I believe he could be accepted back as a beloved member of the family. But again, Harry has got to take the first step. And you, what do you think of this new information suggesting that many of Harry's grievances are not so legitimate? Please let me know your opinion below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and share with anybody else who would appreciate it too. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.